The story of convicted killer and cult leader Charles Manson continues tonight on NBC at 9 o'clock. The show Aquarius is a work of historical fiction focusing on Charles Manson's life before the Hollywood murders. Now, in real life, counselors pegged Manson as a threat before he turned 15.
Now, those counselors encountered Manson right here in Indianapolis at the Indiana Boys School back in the 1940s. Eyewitness News reporter Rich Van Wyk found clues to Manson's future buried in Indiana's archives, along with glimpses of other famous and infamous characters in Hoosier history.
Before Charles Manson became America's most famous serial killer, he was a troubled Indianapolis kid. 14 when sent to the Indiana Boys School for stealing a bike, a car, and robbing a grocery. The personal observations and official records of his incarceration are sad and scary. "I still love you all, Charles," he wrote on a note asking relatives for money to buy stamps and writing paper. Charles was transferred from one vocational job to another, frequently breaking rules, testing authority. "I have done everything I know what to do with this boy," wrote one counselor. "I can't do one thing with him." 6 escapes ended with capture and corporal punishment, one offense resulting in 10 strokes. "Charles does not seem to have adjusted himself properly," wrote a staffer. Another made an ominous observation. "The boy has an unusual degree of leadership ability and influence on others."
Sun shining this morning.
20 years later, Charles Manson led a family of followers on a murder spree in California that claimed at least 7 lives. The candid insight into the early life of a serial killer is among the millions of documents preserved in Indiana's official archives.
These are the governor's records from Indiana.
And these are the only surviving military records of hundreds of thousands of Hoosier veterans.
You can get Veterans Hospital benefits.
This is one of the plates used when Indiana could print its own money.
How valuable are these?
They're probably priceless.
But the really priceless stuff is locked in a safe inside a locked vault. Here is the basis of all state law, Indiana's original Constitution. The shelves and stacks of history seem endless.
Walking through here, you get the feeling you're in that scene from the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you were to take all the boxes in the Record Center and the state archives and line them up end to end, that line would stretch about 100 miles. We know what happened. Why do we have to keep all this stuff?
Well, it's interesting you say that because we don't always know what happened.
State archivist Jim Corridan says keeping Indiana's original documents, the Constitution, laws from the legislature, Supreme Court rulings, and others help Hoosiers hold the government accountable.
Some of these records prove your rights as a citizen.
And preserve history some might want to forget. The charter of Indiana's first chapter of the Ku Klux Klan, signed by the powerful T.C. Stevenson.
The most famous Indiana Klansman ever to have been. So there's the famous mugshot.
Along with the exploits of bank robber John Dillinger. On another shelf, there are the still sealed prison and health records of Mike Tyson. For all their importance and value, Indiana hasn't done a great job of protecting its history. It is stored in a sometimes leaky warehouse with poor climate controls and a fire suppression system that uses water.
For every year that we're here, we're probably losing 10 years off of the life of the paper because of the massive fluctuations in humidity.
But that's changing. The legislature recently allocated $25 million for a new archive center, preserving and protecting Indiana's portal to the past.
Rich Van Wyk, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
And it will likely be several years before the Archive Center is completed and finally open to the entire public.